So I'm here to talk about why India is the only real choice to be the global climate tech capital. People talk about the US, which is in a total tailspin at the moment. People have talked about China, which has turned inwards because of their own domestic issues, which they're not going to talk about. And India, as sort of the world's most populous nation, with 95% of global climate issues existing on our shores, plus 19 different countries within one country, and a whole eco-diversity that we have, is the perfect testing ground for any climate technology. And fundamentally, if it works in India, it can be taken anywhere and plug and play, I would say, with minimal change. It's sort of turning upside down the system or the framework that's been in use for the last 20 years, where the rich global north was sending tech that didn't work down to the global south. And where are we because of that? Well, we're nowhere, frankly. So let me get into this real quick. Okay. 6 years. That's the number I want all of you to hold in your mind for the next 20 minutes. Not think about 2030, not think about 2050, just 6 years. That's the global carbon budget that the world has, roughly 235 gigatons of carbon dioxide left in the budget for just a 40% chance of holding warming to 1.5 degrees. Now, the fact is we crossed the 1.5 degree threshold last year, this year, and internally at Parinama, when we do any modeling, we assume a base of 1.5 degrees. I think there's zero chance we stay below that by 2050, let alone 2030. The WMO, the World Meteorological Organization, put the odds of 2025 to 2029 average temperature of 1.52 degrees. So we're already above, forget it. That number is history. It's irrelevant today. Anybody talks about it, they don't know what they're talking about. I'm not opening with this to scare anyone or alarm anyone. I'm pretty sure everybody here knows that number. I opened with it because it changes the question we should be asking. The question isn't, is the transition coming? It's here. The question isn't, will capital flow? Well, $1.9 trillion moved in 2023. The first year private finance crossed $1 trillion in climate. The only question is whether the capital arrives early enough, in the right sectors, and in the right shape and form to bend the curve while it can still be bent. And that's where India comes into the equation. My thesis is simple. India is on track to become the global capital of climate tech by 2030 to 2032, depending on how quickly people listen to me. It's not because we have one advantage. It's because we have 4 advantages that, when you stack them together, no other country in the world has. And I'll go through each of them one by one. The obstacle between India and being the world's climate tech hub is not technology, not founders, not policy, not the absolute level of capital we have domestically. It's the shape of the capital. A venture capital model inherited from Silicon Valley software, structurally mispriced for what climate businesses actually look like and how they operate. I want to make 2 arguments first. Why India, and why it's pretty much impossible to replicate what we can do here. Second, why the existing capital model is failing, what a replacement, which we at Parinama have been developing and calling VC 2.0, could look like. And I will close by making the whole framework concrete on a single asset class many of us are here to discuss, clean air. So let me start with the big picture. Between 2008 and 2026, India's climate tech ecosystem absorbed $12.8 billion across 1,600 firms. I mean, it's a decent number, less than 10% of what one good year of US climate tech financing looks like. But the conviction in this room and at Parinama is that we will be the center of gravity when it comes to this asset class by the end of the decade, because of these four advantages that I'd mentioned earlier. Okay, firstly, India has demand at civilizational scale. We're the only large economy whose energy demand is still doubling. By 2030, we add more power capacity than Germany's entire installed base. 25 million first-time air conditioner buyers, 100 million two-wheelers to replace, 40,000 municipal solid waste sites. It's a continent of unmet demand for clean modular technology, and every climate solution invented anywhere must at some point prove itself in India under India's unit economics test or become obsolete. I'm putting my money on that point, right? Secondly, policy momentum is now genuinely operational, slow, sure, but they're starting off with baby steps. And I think I'm not going to recite the targets: 500 gigawatts of non-fossil capacity, green hydrogen, PLI, $50 billion climate financing, blah, blah, blah. You know them. What I want to flag instead is what the policy infrastructure looks like beneath the headlines. IREDA DSCRs at 1.25 for solar and wind, and 1.3 for everything else. NABARD at 4-to-1 debt to equity, 20-year tenor. SIDBI is now an accredited direct access entity for the Green Climate Fund. And the Avana GCF transaction closed in October 24 was, I think, the pilot and the benchmark for how this can be done and should be done, frankly. Now, none of these numbers is a slogan. It's a plumbing decision. We're putting the pipes together, right? Makes capital movable. 2 years ago, an Indian climate company could not credibly raise blended finance scale. Today it can, and that's what policy momentum looks like when it works. The problem is that does it work? And if not, how can we improve that? Sorry. Thirdly, India has a cost curve that's now, that's descent, as in decrease, is structural. It's built into the way that things are constructed. We build utility-scale solar at the lowest tariffs in the world. Battery storage tariffs down by 50% in 2 years. Electric two-wheelers hit TCO parity before any other major market, right? And on and on and on and on. The rankings matter. It tells you which Indian climate subsectors are below the social cost of carbon and which are above. The ones that are below it don't need permanent subsidies, the ones above do, right? It gives you a gauge as to where investment needs to go. And India is the only country where most of these subsectors are below the social cost of carbon. And the final advantage, and I think the most important one that we have, is climate tech is interdisciplinary in that it involves electrochemistry, software, project finance, regulatory engineering, field operations, economics, physics, blah, blah, et cetera, et cetera. We have those skill sets at scale domestically and at cost per units that are much cheaper than they are in the rest of the world and allow a startup to actually iterate. A climate tech engineering team in Bangalore costs a third of the equivalent in California, with comparable depth in machine learning controls and grid scale power. It's not labor arbitrage, it's velocity. We get more shots on goal per dollar of runway. That stack is impossible to replicate in the next 25 years. Nobody can do it. So we have natural advantages which, put together, we should be taking advantage of. People here are probably thinking, well, China can do it, and Indonesia can do it, and Brazil can do it, yada, yada, yada. No, they can't. China has the cost curve and the talent, but the geopolitical envelope will not allow this to happen. Western LPs can't invest in China, so right there you've got a limitation on capital. Indonesia, Vietnam, Southeast Asia have demand and policy, but not the engineering depth or the depth of capital. Brazil has demand and clean power, but tiny manufacturing base and hardly any DFI. And the United States is just a travesty today compared to where it was under the leadership of the moron in chief, as I like to call him. When I say, India is the global climate tech capital by 2030, I'm not making a triumphalist claim. I'm making a structural one. It's the only country where we have 4 advantages that are all in place at the same time. We're scaling, we're visible to global capital. It's not a forecast, it's the present time observation that can and will come true if we continue to work in the right ways towards it. So, if VC doesn't work, what does the alternative look like? At Parinama, we've spent the last 2 years building it, and we've called it VC 2.0 just because it's easy. It's a structurally different discipline and built on 5 inversions, which I'll walk you through each one briefly, because the framework is only useful if the inversions are precise. 1, duration, from 10 years to 13, 15, 17, depending on the company. The fund vehicle must outlast the technology. A 10-year fund doesn't outlast climate companies and so sustainability companies, which take 15, 17 years to mature. Must have a 5 to 7 year investment period, 100% capital recycling in years 1 through 7, 7-year continuation vehicle. Climate Investor 1 runs at a 20-year cascade. Acumen Resilient, 12. BEV runs at 20. The structures exist. Why can't we use them in India? Why is there this fixation on a 10 plus 1 plus 1? What? Literally, I'm asking why. Can anybody give me a reasonable answer as to why we're limited with fund tenor? Yeah, neither can the RBI or SEBI governors. So, we're on the same boat. In version 2, capital stack, from single class of equity to a layered cascade. LPs have fundamentally different risk tolerance, and our reference structure is a 3-tranche cascade, 20% first loss from DFIs, 40% concessional, and 40% commercial. So CO1 deploys exactly this on 20-40-40. Convergence reports every dollar of first loss mobilizes roughly $4 of senior commercial capital, 1 to 4, the single most important number in blended finance, and the lever that converts catalytical capital into infrastructure capital at scale, which is what we need in India. 3, instruments, from equity only to a toolkit of 7. VC has 1 tool, preferred equity. Yeah, there's converts and stuff to go into that, but that's be all and end all. Climate businesses need 7. Equity, convert notes calibrated to milestones, debt, MES, project finance, revenue-based financing, demand dividends, and impact-linked credit. A Series A solar DC startup and a Series C grid software hybrid are different businesses. They need different instruments. This toolbox has what they need. It allows you to deploy what the businesses actually benefit from and not what the LPA happens to allow, right? So you're being, it's apples for apples, not one size fits all, which doesn't work and hasn't worked in India. I mean, why hasn't it worked? Well, 3% of climate tech companies managed to raise a Series B. 3%. That's it. I mean, it's a staggeringly low number. And it's not because 97% of the companies were shit. It's because they weren't being built the right way and financed the right way. And finally, it's underwriting, from SaaS metrics to a deal stack. This is the most important inversion. Every investment we make is underwritten on 2 stacks simultaneously, finance and impact, and neither is subordinate. On the financial side, the metrics, the asset class, rewards DCF with terminal value and other sort of valuation improvements. We're publishing a hardware roadmap, which we will, in due time, show all you guys. And on the impact side, whatever your impact metrics are, You verify against beneficiaries via Vera, Gold Standard, Blue Mark, Iris, our friends here at Aspire, who, are on the cutting edge of doing this. And, working with them, I think we will be able to quantify and, track impact on a dollar-to-dollar basis. So you can see the impact you're making. And that every deal needs 2 parallel committee votes, finance and impact. Everyone can veto, both must affirm. That's the single procedural rule that prevents the drift towards finance only. And without that, this is dead in the water before it starts. It's also going to be the reason why a lot of so-called impact funds won't be around. Is that me? All right, well, there's a lot more to go. Come find me later. Sorry, I'm just in pain, so I'm trying to talk slowly, but that's the preview, I guess. And I think we have a panel coming up, which maybe we did. So I'm also involved in that, so I'm not going to get up. Okay. Sorry, guys.